Give it a go.
Yes.
So good morning to all of you again, and welcome to this, session of the webinar. We have with us Professor Ramanathan and Professor Orozco, both of them members of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences and Social Sciences, and they're joined by their colleagues from the academia, the West Coast, and from the government office. And we briefly going to be talking about the need to adopt this document as a guideline in our attempt to help bend the curve. So the need to adopt the global climate resilience movement to begin it, and then to prescribe, as it were, for this movement, what we have kind of codenamed MST, mitigation, adaptation, and social transformation. So in a way, it's like the wise counsel of Pope Francis, who says that nobody emerges from a crisis the same way he entered a crisis. So we're supposed to learn from a crisis and be able to get out of it better. And we get out of it better because we replan our journey, we set ourselves new rules, we discover new forms of commitment and build on our, on a more positive experiences than we've had before. So everything that is happening in the venue of this meeting, so the recent forest fires of January, places, they did place it best to be able to replan, to be able to rethink, and come out with a new process to come out of this better. And so to help us all adopt, talk about the need to adopt this, start this movement, which at the suggestion of the Pontifical Academies are meant to start off in 10 cities around the world. We've got our eminent panelists to be able to, lead us into this and convince us a little bit more about the need for this. So I think we start with the host, Professor Ramanathan. If you want to take us through this first, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Cardinal Turkson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
But I'm not able to start my video. They said the host has prevented me video. Can someone help out?
Okay, so you want to start with Orozco and then come back to you?
No, I think it maybe we don't want to change the order.
Okay.
Or I can start without the video and they can start it in mid-stream. Is that okay, Cardinal Turkson?
Sure.
Well, first, I am delighted and honored to be here. And I first want to thank our previous 4 speakers, eminent speakers, Governor Healy of Massachusetts, one of my climate heroes, and Governor for Japan, Governor from Vihiga County in Kenya, and former FEMA head Dean Criswell. You really set the stage. So, as Cardinal Turkson already informed you, we are launching this set of 10 regional summits, California being the first. And all of this is focused on resilience. And resilience to what? Resilience to climate and weather extremes. So what is it all about? And we want to take this dialogue of responding to climate, protecting people, protecting ecosystem at the city and subnational level. And so that's our main goal in these. The next question we want to ask is, what can we do about it? Okay. It turns out we can do a lot to both protect people and the ecosystem and even thrive after this. So where did this idea of subnational summit come from? You already heard from Cardinal Turkson. We had a major summit for mayors and governors last in 2024. And why subnational? As you already heard from the FEMA administrator, that there are a lot of sufferings at the local city level. and it's all being dealt by the mayors, county chairs, and governors. So that's why we want to take it subnational and have regional summits in both hemispheres so we can help launch a global movement for resilience. So this slide addresses the question. I've been saying we. Who are the we? The we are the Pontifical Academy. Sorry, can we go back to the previous slide, please? Pontifical Academy of Sciences and Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences. You already heard the 10 regional summits we are planning, and the committee consists of the leadership of the Academies of Sciences, Professor von Braun, Helen Alford, Sister Helen Alford, Chancellor Turkson, my incredible colleague, Chancellor Marcello. And the whole secretariat for this is going to be in Massachusetts, Boston. Can I go to the next slide, please? So our overarching vision for the California Summit is to keep the California dream alive. It's not an empty phrase. That's what we're going to strive and work on. And the chairs of this summit, it's drawn from a purely transdisciplinary group. Sam Assefa and Abby Edwards are from the government of California. Tina Christie and Fauna are from the University of California. And then Deborah Gore and Jonathan Parfrey are what I call coming from the civil society. They head very effective, powerful NGOs on climate actions. So I want to say there is also over about 40 in our steering committee helping us. So it did take a village. Can I have the next slide, please? So let's define us. Resilience is such a broad word. It depends on the context. So what is our context? It's climate and weather extremes. And what it has are 6 components. Anticipate the threats and risks. This is what scientists have been doing for the last at least 50 years, telling us that as the planet heats up from these pollutants, it will lead to more severe weather extremes and climate extremes, all for one fundamental reason, scientific reason. As the planet gets warm, it gets more humid. It's the humidity which drives all the weather. The next is we want to reduce the threats. We have many nations and states, including California, a leader in this, mitigate these emissions and mitigate the threats and risks. That's reduce. Then starts all the 4 components of prepare, respond, recover, and rebound. So all comes under the adaptation class. If I can go to the next slide, please. Now let's ask, when we see a weather extreme, fires or floods from hurricanes, what aspects of the society does it impact? It turns out it's a ripple effect. Every part of every human dimension of living is impacted. Start from, in the middle, you have destruction of property. We know that. In California, we've experienced it. Pollution, air quality, we experienced that too. Increased cost of living. I'll just give you an example of insurance. And for the vulnerable population, they even lose their livelihood. And then vector-borne disease on the health effects, heat stress, physical health, vector-borne disease, and mental health. If you were to force me to choose one thing here, I would put public health on the top of my agenda, protecting the health of all Californians, okay? And on the migration issue, just worldwide, just in the last 5 years, 43 million children have been displaced. They had to leave their home, go to a neighbor's, or go to next village or next country, etc. If I can have the next one, please. So you heard about this MAST strategy. Cardinal Turkson spoke eloquently about this. So we think of resilience has to be built on 3 pillars. The first is mitigation. You got to cut the emissions to reduce the risk. And you can take other steps, okay? And like fireproofing your home to mitigate the risks of fires. Next comes adaptation. You're going to hear a lot about this in this 2 days. And the third one is societal transformation. That's a loaded word. So let me just explain what we are talking about social and behavioral changes needed to mitigate and to adapt. And I want to point out the youth voice, that youth involvement are essential. And in fact, the regional summits organized by the Pontifical Academies, all the 10 summits this year, is going to have a major focus on youth involvement. We have a youth group talking to us. And one of them, I'm proud to say, is my granddaughter, teenage granddaughter. She goes to school in LA. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, what is adaptation? And again, we will learn from this, but it has to be a bottom-up. You have to adapt at the individual level, your community level, your city, your county, and the entire state. But it also requires top-down efforts, mainly guidance. They have enormous agencies. We heard from Wade Crowfoot leading one of those agencies. Sam Assefa leads one of the major efforts on climate resilience. So we need help from them too, the state. But there are enormous benefits. I'm here quoting a report published 5 years ago by former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Bill Gates. They really saw the need for adaptation, and they estimated, they're a bunch of experts, investing just 1.8 trillion in 5 areas of adaptation over a 10-year period could generate as much as 7 trillion in net benefits. So spending the amount of the finance we're going to spend on adaptation, we can't think of it as an expenditure. It's more an investment in the future. Let me go to the next one, please. So I just want to briefly describe to you, Cardinal Turkson already told you the amazing, amazing number of meetings on sustainability, resilience, the academies have held. My journey started with the Pontifical Academy in 2004, when Pope John Paul II elected me to the academy. These science academies are like other science, every nation. In fact, California has its own science academy. It's not something you can subscribe and join them. You have to be elected. I want to tell you one remarkable thing about these two academies. I've been in the council helps elect new members. We have never, ever once asked what a person's religion is, what a person's race is, culture. The election is purely based on scientific excellence. In fact, amongst the 80 members, about a fifth of them are Nobel laureates. Me and my colleague, Paul Turkson, were asked by Pope Benedict to arrange a meeting in 2011. In that meeting, we already concluded, mind you, this is 14 years ago, adaptation must start now. So it's not a new flash in the pan idea. The community at large have been talking about adaptation. Then it's 2014. That was a memorable 2 years for me. First of all, I turned 70 in 2014. I teamed up with an economist from the Social Science Academy. We organized this sustainability. At the end of that meeting, normally as we do, we meet with Pope Francis and briefed him. I mentioned to him just one fact, which is 50% of the population contribute 90% of the emissions. The lower 50% in terms of economical well-being, that's 4 billion. Their total contribution is less than 10%, but they suffer 75% of the economic consequences. So in this picture, you see of Pope Francis, he released his Laudato Si, which I consider to be one of the best, if not the best, climate document, which talks about the human dimensions. He summarized the whole justice issue by one beautiful sentence, which is, cry of the earth should be heard with the cry of the poor. If I can go to the next one, please. I want to tell you how the societal transformation, I started thinking about it. You have to know my background. I basically work on climate physics. I published my first paper exactly 50 years ago. And I had this meeting with His Holiness Dalai Lama just about a year before I had talked to Pope Francis. So I was giving a long lecture, and His Holiness Dalai Lama interrupted me and said, Dr. Ramanathan, tell me how you can clean the outer environment without cleaning the inner environment. So that's, Pope Francis called it ecological conversion. That's what we mean by societal transformation, starting with individual behavioral change. If I can have the next one, please. I'm not seeing the thing. Is the PowerPoint clear? In mine, it's blurry. So, Cardinal Turkson, are they trying to bring up the PowerPoint, or my screen is blank?
Yeah,
Apologies, Ram. This slide is not turning.
Okay, I'll just summarize this, and then we can go to the next one. Around the same time, that's 2013, the president of University of California, was Janet Napolitano, asked me to get a committee together and come with 10 climate solutions. And Professor Fala Farman, you'll hear from her, and Professor Kamen from Berkeley were my vice chairs. And we came up with this report called Bending the Curve, which just then launched the Bending the Curve undergraduate course, and which we heard it from Professor Drake. And in that, our second solution was societal transformation. So if you're hearing all this for the first time, it's not that we thought of this last year. Many others had come to the same conclusion about societal transformation. Can I have the next slide, please? Those are my two crucial slides. I hope it'll show up. Emilia, Robert, can you put the next slide?
Yes, sorry, we're having trouble with this one in particular.
Oh, all the rest of the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Emilia, should I go on and wrap up my talk, or you think there is a chance the slides will show up?
I think we will find. Yes, sorry, these ones in particular are not showing. My apologies.
Okay, so this one shows at the Vatican summit, Governor Newsom having an audience with Pope Francis. And I could tell he was truly elated and genuinely happy about that audience. Then I followed him. We went to a coffee room. And just the idea popped up. I told Governor, oh, there it is. Oh, so this one was what I showed about the bending the curve. You can see that the second solution was societal transformation. Our governor, J.D. Brown, at that time carried to the United Nations. And you can see Governor Newsom was also super supportive about this. So if I can go to the next one, please. Oh, okay. Let me just wrap it up. There are 2 points I want to make. Why California? Yeah, there it is. It has the largest economy, biggest population, powerhouse for food and wine production. I don't know how many of you know, 90% of the wine and nuts are produced in California or consumed in the US. And it turns out we are the 5th largest exporter of food. We have the largest forested area. What I'm most excited about is this fact. California has made significant progress in reducing climate risks while creating millions of jobs and growing the economy. So investing in climate change, mitigation, adaptation, resilience would have a huge positive impact on the jobs and the economy. Unfortunately, it's also experiencing significant human, economic, and ecosystem disruptions caused by the worsening of this climate weather extremes. And because of how large its economy is, its agriculture, legendary agriculture, and so many other things, the state and nation's economy, food supply, inflation, and human well-being for all Americans are all at risk without resilience action in California and hopefully the rest of the nation. So let me conclude with the last one. All right. What we are calling for in the summit is a One California resilience plan. We are never, ever, ever going to solve this problem by pointing fingers at each other. I'm reminded of what my grandfather told me. If you point one finger at somebody else, 3 fingers are pointing towards you. So remember that. And we need to stand united and in solidarity. I think climate resilience can help unite Americans. And I also want to, this is my personal feelings, few share it. One way to unite us is to seek the help of faith institutions and faith leaders, because we all go to the same church or same synagogue, whether you are trusting climate science or you're skeptical. So that's a place we can have a political discussion to unpack climate change from all the issues that divide us. There is still time. We can do it, but we have no time to waste. In 5 years from now, this is a prediction I had made about 8 years ago, and the United Nations now agrees with that. We're going to cross a major, major threshold in the warming in just 5 years. I hope you'll be prepared. Thank you so much, Cardinal Turkson. Oh. Finally, my video worked after I finished my talk.
Cardinal, you're unmuted.
Sorry, Louise, I was just asking whether you want to introduce the next speaker.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ram, for that great presentation. Next, we will hear from one of our other summit co-chairs, Sam Assefa, who is director of the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation here in California. Sam.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Ram, for that really inspiring talk, but also informative. I have been completely in awe the last 6 months working with you, and thank you for your leadership in this space. I will just give a high-level overview of California's climate work and commitments, both locally, nationally, and internationally, just to set the stage why I believe it is the appropriate partner with this effort, but also I think the right place to really launch the Vatican-initiated summit to address climate change. California's approach, as most of you know, is bold, and it has been in its DNA and history that every administration, as Ram mentioned, regardless of political affiliation, this state has led on climate issues and continues to lead. And it is a comprehensive approach that the state has taken that is really deeply rooted in centering our work on vulnerable communities and science. Our experience here proves that taking bold actions is not just an environmental imperative, but also an economic opportunity. With the world-leading investments, transformative legislation, and innovations in clean energy, transportation, and climate resilience, I think California has demonstrated that it is possible to reduce emissions, safeguard public health, and grow a thriving economy simultaneously. And just to give you an example, we are now having clean energy jobs surpassing fossil fuel jobs by 7 to 1. And that has been growing significantly just as our investments on climate has increased. California's climate budget this year alone includes $17.5 billion between just two agencies, the California Natural Resources Agency, Wade, from whom you've heard and you will hear today again, and the California Environmental Protection Agency. In fact, under Newsom's administration, just in the last 6 years, California has invested more than $50 billion to support implementing the state's ambitious climate commitments. And this is not just coming from leadership and government. And that's why I said, I think it is in the DNA of California, this commitment. Just in the last election, in the November election, California voters approved one of the largest climate investment bonds in the state's history, a $10 billion bond. This is at a time of, political shifts as well. And our investments continue to pay off. For example, we met our 2020 greenhouse gas reduction targets 6 years ahead of schedule. And the state leads in transportation and electricity decarbonization with the largest clean energy workforce in the country. And our investments in renewable energy and clean transportations are driving economic growth while cutting emissions, as I mentioned earlier. And in addition to the investments in the dollars, I think what's remarkable, just even in the last few years, is that the state's approach, taking sort of an all-of-government approach to address this issue. As we heard from speakers earlier, it always comes up, you can't do this alone. And then from government perspective, we're also focusing on that no single agency or the natural resources or Cal EPA can do it alone. And so the governor has been pushing from day one that we need to have an all-of-government approach to addressing this issue and the investments. As an example, at the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation, my office here, LCI, we are advancing policies and programs that integrate climate resilience into land use, community planning, and coordinating decision-making at all levels of government. One of the programs, the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program, advances a cohesive and holistic response to climate change by coordinating regional and local efforts with the state. And our efforts in strategic engagement and community empowerment are further realized in our work through the Strategic Growth Council within LCI, a council that's made up of 7 agency secretaries and 3 at-large public members. And through leadership by people like Louise Bedsworth here, SGC, when she was with us and before she abandoned us, SGC has shown significant commitments to deepening partnerships, building local capacity, and removing structural obstacles to accessing public funds. Since 2006, SGC has invested over $3.5 billion in physical and social infrastructure projects to strengthen communities and address the climate crisis across some of the state's most vulnerable communities. California's leadership is also not only in the state, but nationally and globally. California is the founding member of the U.S. Climate Alliance, which was co-founded by California Governor Jerry Brown. The alliance was formed in 2017 as a bipartisan coalition of governors representing 55% of the U.S. population and 60% of the nation's economy. That has a remarkable impact with that kind of commitment. And then through this coalition, the U.S. Climate Alliance actually advances policies that align with the Paris Agreement and drive clean energy innovation and protect communities from worsening climate impacts. And globally, California is a key player in global climate action as a co-founder of the Under 2 Coalition, which is the largest network of subnational governments committed to reaching net zero emissions by 2050 or earlier. And this coalition represents over 270 subnational governments in a commitment to achieve net zero by 2050 and maintain international partnerships through memorandum of understandings, sharing best practices in renewable energy and adaptation and climate finance with global partners. So California remains to be a reliable global partner, reinforcing that subnational action is critical to accelerating climate solutions worldwide. And that's why the Vatican's efforts is so apropos for us, not only to be engaged, but as I mentioned, for us to really be the first out the door in terms of trying to realize that vision. Our engagement certainly aligns with our core values, prioritizing sustainability and inclusive resilience to build a better future for all. So in closing, I would say the climate crisis demands, as people that we spoke earlier said, unprecedented collective effort. And as one of the world's largest economies, California embraces our responsibility to act. Our progress proves that environmental stewardship and economic prosperity can go hand in hand. And as the global emission continues to reach record highs and people around the world increasingly suffer the consequences, I think know this, California will not only protect our progress, but we will continue on our path to address this crisis at the speed and scale required by science. The climate crisis demands this kind of action, bold action, and as Ram said, we're running out of time, but we can still do it. So I look forward to that collaboration as we move forward. And again, thank the Pontifical Academy of Sciences and Social Sciences for really spearheading and coordinating this effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you for California's leadership in this space. It really is incredibly valuable and so important right now. And with that, to keep us moving along, I will turn to our final speaker from another very important state and the Secretariat, home of the Secretariat for this global effort, Chancellor Marcello Suárez-Orozco from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. So I'll turn over to you, Marcello.
Thank you. Good morning and greetings from Boston Harbor. I'd like to thank Cardinal Turkson, Dr. Luis Bedsworth for chairing this important session. I also want to thank my dear colleague Ram, Sam, for your leadership in organizing the extraordinary launch of our Global Climate Resilience Summits. Before I start, I too want to say a word of condolences to all of those who've lost so much in the terrible, wicked fires in California. My heart goes out, and I am so close to the lives and experiences of all who load so much. Here, I present 5 reflections in response to the Holy Father's historic speech at the Apostolic Palace on May 2024, and his extensive writing, particularly in Laudato Si, but elsewhere, on climate resilience and the plight of the poor. Our initiatives at the Pontifical Academies, prompted by his call, and as Cardinal Turkson reminded us, the long history of our academies and the various pontificates make clear. The academies, prompted this time by Pope Francis's call, convened mayors, governors, scientists, NGOs, faith communities, indigenous leaders, children, youth, during 10 global summits across every hemisphere to protect all, especially the most vulnerable, from the climate crisis, to embark us on a path toward a healed, sustainable, more humane future. First, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, as Ram reminded us, are one. California Climate Resilience Summit Outcomes and Aspirations Report clarifies conceptually the extent of California's climate crisis, with ever more wicked droughts, wildfires, floods, impacts all Californians, but disproportionately the poor, the marginalized, and underserved communities are most affected. We cannot stand idly by while our brothers and sisters suffer the most from a crisis they did the least to create. Faith and reason. Faith and reason demand that we hear from both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, as the Holy Father taught us, recognizing them as a single, unified plea for justice. Then, in the Aristotelian Thomistic tradition, we must mind the intrinsic value of nature, the common good as the aim of political action, justice and the obligations to future generations, prudence as a virtue guiding political action. Second, solidarity is not optional. The California report again rightly emphasizes unity and solidarity. Climate change knows no borders. All feel its effects, effects that are particularly cruel to those already struggling. We must move beyond division, narrow self-interest, embrace the spirit of what in the report we call One California Resilience, where we stand together, above all, protecting the most vulnerable among us. This requires concrete actions, policies, and fundamentally, a change of heart that prioritizes the common good. The pithy, on point, and clear CRC2 document outlines in a scientific, rigorous, scholarly, clear, ethical, and inclusive path toward healing, resilience, and a sustainable humanity. Third, the masked strategy is a moral imperative. The report emphasizes mitigation, adaptation, and societal transformation is a strategic framework based on the best science and policy work. More importantly, it remains a fundamental moral imperative. I'm not going to cover the basis of the MAST as it has been covered already by my colleagues. Fourth, we must protect, plan, and respond. As the report urges us, we must move beyond reacting to climate shocks. In a Cartesian binary, we must respond to shocks in the here and now, and as our former head of FEMA, Dr. Griswold noted earlier, we must prepare for the longer-term infrastructure resilience. Proactive measures are essential, emphasizing resilience and the insurance vehicles to protect the properties, the livelihoods, and improve the health. And here again, your report is so pithy and clear. Health and well-being of Californians, among all, but also most specifically the most vulnerable. And fifth, a call to conversation. Ultimately, as the Holy Father has always said, the current crisis demands that we reflect upon a conversion of the heart. We must reflect on our lifestyles, consumption habits, and relationships with one another, with all living systems, and with creation. Embodying the Aristotelian Thomistic tradition, Francis urges us to be stewards of the gifts of the Creator. Natural law calls us to protect and cherish our common home, ensuring a just and sustainable future for all, especially the poor, marginalized, the immigrant, the refugee, future generations who suffer the most from this crisis. Today, the eyes of the world are on California. Subsequent summits in every hemisphere will be anchored in Kenya, Brazil, Austria, Japan, India, China, and elsewhere. I am happy to invite you all to attend the next summit in the iconic city of Boston at our public research university on Thursday, March 27th, presided over by Governor Maura Healey and the Pontifical Academies. Our Massachusetts Summit will feature representatives from all 351 cities and towns in the state for an interactive dialogue. Climate resilient efforts at the federal level continue to falter. Local officials now must lead. The summits moving forward, local leaders will be invited to articulate what they need to know and do to enact mass visions locally to protect the cities around the world. While locally grounded summits have a common grammar, the question we're all asking is, What will it take to implement the recommended solutions in the historic planetary protocol for climate change resilience in each of the disparate regions of the world? How do we foster a better dialogue leading to local knowledge sharing and nature-based solutions? I'm happy to announce this is maybe a first. I am happy to announce that the Brazil summit, scheduled to coordinate and share our work with the COP30 in Brazil, in Amazonia, later this year, will be entirely focused on the voices of youth and children, including indigenous youth and indigenous children. The principal outcomes of the regional summits will be the development of region-specific blueprints for resilience, spearheaded by mayors, governors, researchers, faith-based institutions, indigenous communities, youth, and civil society leaders. California is the first test case, and I am bullish about what the beautiful state that formed me as a scholar. I have multiple degrees from the University of California, will show the world how to lead in this moment of crisis. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate all of your leadership and for helping kick off this important summit.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Louise. This session is now closed, so if everyone would please join the next session from the lobby. Thank you all.